All right, and how can the city support the CHUH schools as a community asset and means to attract and retain families? Sort of touched on that.
Yeah, I think that all goes together. If we do a visioning process and figure out ways that the city and the schools can work together better, that would make sense to me. We have so many. At some level, you're almost talking about regionalism, or or creating a system where the school board and the city council might be combined somehow, because the way they're siloed now, the school board can just look at what it needs to pay the teachers, run the buildings, and educate the students, and get that tax passed without looking at other factors like what's that going to do to people moving out, what to population loss. And I think to some degree the city government has done the same thing. But those visions need to be married for both silos. And people need to be thinking about, how's this affecting my community? Because if people keep moving out and we keep having a lower and lower tax base, eventually we won't have our Cleveland Heights. We're in a strong position now to make the changes we need to make. But I don't know how you can tell when the tipping point is.
Mr. Benjamin, I'm Mike Murray. I was born and raised in Cleveland Heights, Heights grad. Went away to school for a while, and now I'm back, and I don't think I'll leave. I really like this place. So.
It's good.
The financial viability of our city government is critical to our success. The recent defeat of an income tax increase followed by the housing and employment crisis have diminished tax revenue and increased community needs. Now, you might have touched on some of these questions, but what do you believe will make our city government more financially sustainable?
Some of this is state law stuff, to me. I did not support the income tax increase. I thought that was a bad move. Because I think we would have lost people. And the people we would lose would be wage earners. No, that's not the people we want to lose. If we want to lose anybody, we want those folks to move in, because that's how you get income tax. Now, that's a structural issue, as I understand it. The state government only allows income tax on wages. So one of the things I would advocate is that we try to get that changed. I think that the city government, we need to, this board, this council did start doing this, and in the last cuts, though I can't quite tell what their thinking was from the stuff they put on the website, it looked like they made a lot of changes in a lot of areas financially to try to create some better sustainability and better levels of expense. The expense side at this point is the only place we have any control. So for the near term, we're probably going to be looking at more cuts. Because even as the economy turns around, I don't see the tax base actually going up. Not very fast anyway. So I think we're looking at more cost cuts, and that we need to look critically at the city government, maybe in this visioning process, maybe bringing in somebody that knows how to do organizational changes so that we can provide better services for less cost. Now, the move to combine the fire departments of University Heights and Cleveland Heights is an example of that. That would be smart. Mm-hmm. Adding other cities would be smarter. In the western suburbs, there's an effort to combine 7 fire departments into one. Mm-hmm. Things like that we've got to do. And I think the sustainability of the city short term is going to depend on cost control, probably some reorganization of some sort, and getting the community behind whatever change happens, so that we don't have a political debacle like the income tax was. I mean, I lost 16,000 to 10,000. Mm-hmm. That wasn't close. And as a newcomer, talking to people, I knew that was gonna happen. And I just don't, I understand why they put it on there. They thought it was their only option. That's why I've talked to a couple of the city council members about it, and basically it is their only option. You either cut costs to the bone or raise taxes. Both are bad options. Raising taxes is a bad option long term. That'll stay there. It's pretty rare that you get tax cuts. It's kind of like when I do my health insurance work, I ask people when the last time their premium dropped was. But short term, cost control is probably the only game in town. It just depends on, you gotta do it smart. You gotta keep the police services for the lady that wrote in, you gotta keep the garbage collection, you gotta keep core services. And one of the things we should probably do in this visioning process is a survey of people in Cleveland Heights and just ask folks, what are your core services? What can you not do without? And then start ranking things, and that's the way we do the cuts. I think that's kind of what the council was trying to do last time, was look at core services and what we had to keep sustainable and not. Though I've heard disagreement about that too. There's a lot of discussion going on right now, and I think that's really good. And my mind's not solid on any one of these things, but there are a lot of ways to create sustainability. You know, another idea was, I don't know if anybody's heard of the Kalamazoo plan here, but they got a big financier type to put up a chunk of money and guarantee college, I think, a full load. Anyway, a big chunk of the tuition was paid if you stayed in school in the Kalamazoo school system. That might keep more kids in school, you know, and then it'd keep you here, because if we pay for your college, you're not going to be allowed to move for a while. So, I mean, the plans like that, now that takes money, but we have a lot of foundations around here. There's probably a way to work with more than one of the inner ring suburbs to do this.
Right.
Now, it didn't work in Detroit. There's a thing called the Detroit Promise, too, or something like Detroit Contract. And kids are still leaving the schools in droves, even though they get a pretty good scholarship if they stay. But as I say, in some places things work, in other places they don't. I think it would probably work here.
The current housing crisis creates an immediate threat to our neighborhoods and our financial viability. What do you believe City Council should do to address this problem, to transform our vacant properties into an asset?
Well, the first thing I'd like to see them do is publish who owns each of these houses. Because what I'm hearing is that certain banks own lots of them. And then we should be putting pressure on those banks to make sure the housing, at least for the time being while they're vacant, keep them up. Now, if the bank doesn't think they can sell them, I don't know if the land bank comes into Cleveland Heights or not. The land banks are good ideas. We actually got one set up in the Detroit area, and Jim Rokakis came up to the state legislature in Lansing to talk about what he was doing here. So there's been some cross-fertilization there. But I think somehow getting a hold of those properties from the owners, and then we have to figure out a program. There is one now, I guess. They just put one on the market, or sold one last week.
Yeah.
Through the program. That's a good program. It needs to be stepped up. So I like that. I mean, I like that idea. And that might be a way to get people to move in. If we had some housing that was high quality, relatively low cost housing, because we had it retrofitted, then maybe we could get more people who are working folks to move in, because they'd have good housing and a good neighborhood with good schools. And there are people out there I think we could attract that way. It's a long-term problem though. 1,000 houses is a lot. And I don't want to go around tearing them down. That would be probably my last choice, unless they were really a hazard.
Thanks.